Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, one of the grand traditions of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast returns today. It is Michigan Monday, and for once, Tony, we actually get to talk about the Michigan football team and not the Michigan off-the-field general what have you. So looking forward to actually some football talk today.
Yeah. No bylaws, please, today, Tom. No 10.2.1.4.7, which is, tell me off the top of your head right now.
That's not a bylaw, Tony. Come on, you can't fool me with something like that.
You're right. I was trying to catch you off guard, and it did not work. We are here to talk about Michigan's 30-10 win over Fresno State to open the season Saturday night. And it was not easy, but we were at the Ohio State post game, wrapping up our stuff, and I believe the score at the time was 16-3, in which I told our buddy Kevin Noon, "Don't worry, Michigan will score 30 by the end of the game," and scored 17 in the fourth quarter. Tom, you and I have both seen this game before. Like, we've watched literally this game, but also figuratively, we have watched this game before, where it's close throughout, and there's the struggle here, but eventually a couple of late touchdowns make it look much easier than it was. But this one was not an easy one, but credit to Michigan for closing very, very strongly at the end.
Yeah, they eventually looked like the team that they're supposed to be. It took a little while to get there. I did greatly enjoy the fact that Michigan fans spent a lot of their Saturday morning laughing and pointing at Michigan State for only beating a non-Power 5 team 16-10, and then there they were in the middle of the fourth quarter up exactly 16-10 on a non-Power 5 team. Did enjoy that for the few moments that was the exact same score. But yeah, this is one where the talent eventually won out, and there was not much question which team had the better football players, which team probably had more money to sink into scouting and development and all that kind of stuff. It was one where you knew who was going to win the whole time, but it was a little more nerve-wracking, I think, for Michigan fans than they were anticipating when they just saw Fresno State on the schedule.
For sure. And coming off of a national championship, the confidence that you have in that, some of the players that you're returning, the Donovan Edwards being back there, a lot of Colston Loveland, who is, I would say, the best player on offense for Michigan. Reasons for optimism on offense. But what we saw, and we can start there with offense, all off season, this was going to be Alex Orji. And then throughout fall camp, you started to hear Davis Warren's name more. For a while, it was Alex Orji or Jack Tuttle, one of those two guys. And then Davis Warren comes in, and this last week, there were, it was almost like it's going to be Davis Warren, or the word coming out of Michigan. So he got the start. 15 of 25 passing, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, a long completion of just 20 yards. Alex Orji, 1 of 2 passing with 1 touchdown, which was a little 3-yard pass into the flats, bootleg to roll out to Donovan Edwards, which well schemed, but now I believe Alex Orji has thrown 3 passes in his career, completed 2 of them. The 1 pass that he threw past the line of scrimmage in this game was incomplete, and I think it was a 5-yard pass, or 5 yards downfield, and it skipped at about the 3-yard distance, a little bit short of the receiver. So when you look at the disparity between those two, it is clear that they do not feel comfortable with Alex Orji throwing the ball. They feel somewhat comfortable with Davis Warren throwing the ball, but only so far.
Only so far is exactly right. I think it was Noah Eagle who said during the game, and this is sort of a paraphrase, Davis Warren, well, he might not be as accurate as J.J. McCarthy, but the arm talent is similar. The sort of ... on that is also he's not as mobile as J.J. McCarthy. And what were the 2 things that made J.J. McCarthy, what was, first of all, the number one thing that made J.J. McCarthy an effective college quarterback? It was the mobility and what that brought to the Michigan offense. And, J.J. McCarthy's accuracy was fine, but not he was not CJ Stroud. He was not pinpoint accurate at all times. So if he's not as accurate as JJ McCarthy, it's like, And this is the guy who won the job. Looking at the names in that quarterback battle all year, it was former walk-on Davis Warren, Jack Tuttle, who's played, I think this is his, sixth year, something like that, seventh year of college football, and he's never really been able to hold the starting job, even though he's played at, Indiana, and he had not been bouncing from Alabama to Georgia to Ohio State. He's not been able to hold the starting job at Indiana. And then Alex Orji, who came in with a couple of years of playing and one career pass attempt. And it was like, I'm not sure this is exactly Joe Montana and Steve Young battling for the starting job here. And watching the quarterback play, it was fine for the most part. Davis Warren threw one downfield that I had written down, boy, they're just throwing a lot of real short passes. And then he immediately uncorked one downfield and underthrew it and got it picked off. And I was like, I see why they're mostly sticking to the short passes. So this looks like a year when, I'll give you my "it's just week one, don't overreact" speech in a minute, but it feels like so far, based on what we were sort of expecting coming into the season and what we've seen in week one, it feels like a year when the Michigan passing game is going to be something they're going to have to sort of scheme around or very carefully scheme up rather than just unleash.
The coaches are going to earn their money on dealing with the passing game this year, and not just because of the quarterback, but also, and we'll get to the receivers in a bit. I don't know what kind of weapons they have there. Colston Loveland is, as I said, their best player, and you've got to work around that, get him involved. But back with the running game, Davis Warren, no carries in this one, so that very little scrambling. That is part of the JJ McCarthy allure that he had, that they turned to Alex Orji for now in terms of the running quarterback, not a scrambling quarterback. Just you are a runner in this offense. You can read the defensive end or whatever and pull or hand it off. I do wonder if Davis Warren goes down, does Jack Tuttle come in? Is he then the quarterback and then Alex Orji is the change of pace guy? Because I think that's probably what would happen.
I think they're going to have to go with a 2-quarterback system of some sort all year this year, because they really probably need that run element to a certain degree out of the quarterback position, and Davis Warren is really not going to provide that. Jack Tuttle is also not going to provide that. And while we haven't seen that Alex Orji can't provide the passing element of the quarterback position, everything the Michigan coaching staff is doing tells me that they think that he can't provide that passing element of the quarterback position. Because if he's more mobile, it's not like Davis Warren is mid-career Tom Brady. He's fine. But if he doesn't bring the running portion of the quarterback position, and Alex Orji does, and Davis Warren still beat Alex Orji out, that tells me that they don't think that he can throw the ball with any sort of consistency or effectiveness. And the way they're handling him in the passing game tells me that as well. So, yeah, I think if Davis Warren did go down, you probably would see a different 2-quarterback system with Jack Tuttle and Alex Orji. And maybe later this year, once Jaden Davis has a little more time, maybe Jaden Davis is in a position to play a little bit of a bigger role, but he might be a year away. I think, they like him a lot. He's someone who is very highly touted coming out of high school, but a true freshman quarterback is a true freshman quarterback and is going to, Tony, what is a true freshman quarterback going to do, Tony? This is a long-standing position of this podcast.
Yeah, a true freshman quarterback, if they're playing and playing a lot, they are going to lose you one game. Certainly if they're a starter and they're playing out there, they're going to lose you a game you shouldn't lose. And so that's one of the reasons why you don't put them out there. And I'm not expecting him to be out there this year. The Wolverines average 4.5 yards per pass attempt, which is wolf. That's not very good. And the one other deep pass, you mentioned the interception. There's another deep pass from Davis Warren into double coverage, and it's like, well, this is kind of iffy. And again, they will get better. This is where you evaluate. You look at the film. What did you do wrong? Okay, now this is what we're going to do to fix that. And that's going to happen all across the board with this Michigan offense. And where I think the most positive aspect of the Michigan offense for me in terms of the running game is Kahlil Mullings. because he's just consistent. He he went 15 carries for 92 yards, never lost yardage, averaged 6 yards a carry as long as was 21. And down the stretch in that last drive, it's like 16-10. Michigan gets the ball back in the fourth quarter. All of the momentum is on Fresno State's side. Kahlil Mullings went like 21-16 and like 6 or something like that, and got them down the field. And that was basically the end of the game when they finished it there. So his consistency, and he did not get the start. They went with Donovan Edwards, Tom, and we can spend some time on Donovan Edwards because we have done that over the years, breaking down his boomer bust nature. And so I went through, and he has 305 career carries now. 19.4% of his career yardage, a fifth of his yardage has come on 5 career carries, Tom, which that's, I believe, 1.6% of his carries have accounted for 19.4% of his yardage, which is a lot of boom, a lot of bust. Nearly 10% of his career yardage came on those 2 carries against Ohio State in 2022. So that just gives you an idea. I went through his career 25 times. In his career, he has carried the ball at least 5 times in those games, and 14 of those games he's averaged under 5 yards per carry. His career average per carry is 5.5. Only 8 times in those 25 games has he actually reached his average. So much of what has been built by him in his career has come on just a very small handful of carries. And he was 11 carries, 27 yards in this one, which is almost a typical 2023 performance from Donovan Edwards. They can't rely on that. The more that happens, the more you're going to see Kahlil Mullings have this ball and take it away from him and keep it away from him.
You know the old Madden curse where you'd be on the cover of the Madden game and then you'd have a terrible season after that? Donovan Edwards has, for 80-something% of his previous season, it was like a retroactive Madden curse for him to be on the cover of that game, because last season he was not very good for long stretches and hit a couple big ones in the national championship game and hit a couple big ones against Ohio State in 2022. And he's just sort of very well known for, if you say Donovan Edwards, everyone says, yes, what about this? And it's like, yes, what about everything else? And the Fresno State game was yet another what about everything else game. 11 carries, 27 yards, 2 catches, 0 yards. Yes, but what about his touchdown? Yes, he had a touchdown reception on a ball where he was wide open in the flat and had to catch the ball and run forward 3 yards, and he got a touchdown. Total productivity for the game, 13 touches, 27 yards. Long of 7. It has happened so frequently that last year we thought, well, he must be hurt. He must be hurt. That must be why he looks like this. And it just continues to not happen with him. I don't want to overreact on this, and this is week 1, and all the stuff we said on the Ohio State postgame show for week 1 with it's week 1, and you don't want to overreact, and people are going to come a long way, and I think the Michigan offensive line is going to improve a good bit over the course of the season, which may open things up. Right now, though, Kahlil Mullings is so clearly the best back for this Michigan offense, where he doesn't necessarily need to have a hole. If there's a hole there, Donovan Edwards can hit it and run for a long way. If there's not a hole there, Donovan Edwards gets swallowed up for 1 yard. Kahlil Mullings can kind of make, he can sort of make his own yardage, power through, break an arm tackle. That's what they need right now with the way the offensive line was okay. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great. That is what they need right now on offense, not Donovan Edwards. And I was thinking, they're going to be updating the ratings on the players on the EA Sports game. I don't know, how much can you drop the numbers on the cover guy on the game if he continues to average 2.5 yards per carry? I can't imagine they're going to drop him into the mid or low 80s. So I don't know how far they can drop those, but it might be due for an update at some point.
And Mullings, and I'm writing this in Michigan Monday right now. He's basically a Hollywood phone number, 555. Like, that's his yards. Like, every time he touches the ball, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. And then, 555, 6438. And it's like just consistently gaining yards and getting him some positivity going there. Although they were stuffed short on a 3rd and 1 in this game, which is not something that they're used to, but with this offensive line, they might want to get more accustomed to it. But again, first game, everybody's going to look at what they did wrong. Okay, this is what we do to fix it. And now next week we have to go and execute it. And boy, do they have to go and execute it next week. But that's that. We'll talk about that a little bit down the road. The passing game we mentioned with Davis Warren, like the receivers are, I think Peyton O'Leary got the start, and people are like, who? And, you're expecting Tyler Morris, Frederick Moore, Samaj Morgan, and those guys played, but Colston Loveland, 8 receptions, 87 yards, 9 targets. So just remarkably productive when he's targeted. And they line him up out wide, they line him at tight end, they line him in the slot. They're trying to find ways to use him. But he is clearly and by far their most effective weapon in the passing game, that if you have that one guy, everybody knows it. And even though he was the most effective weapon in the passing game, he still only averaged 11 yards a catch. That's not very good for somebody that you need to be one of your top playmakers. And half of his yards were run after catch as well. So that's him making plays out of limitations in the offense. So, 3 catches for 15 yards from Tyler Morris, 2 for 8 for Samaj Morgan. There's nothing there from the outside guys or the slot that isn't involving Colston Loveland. And when he has to be like, we're going to put him out wide at receiver, and that's fine, but that just tells me you have nothing else. You have nobody else of substance right now that has been making plays in camp. And I think this is a big concern. And we've talked about this before the season. Like, this was going to be a concern because who do they have out there that can help Colston Loveland? He's fantastic. He's one of the best route runners in the nation. He's effective at everything he does. But just like you don't win friends with salad, Tom, you don't win championships by throwing to just a tight end. And people will say, well, what about Georgia? Georgia had much more than just a tight end, and I don't know that Michigan does.
I have real concerns about the wide receivers. I think we came into the season, both of us, thinking that might be a spot where they weren't fantastic last year. Roman Wilson was very good, but, the wide receiver play on the whole was kind of just okay for Michigan last year. That's not how they won. There's a reason that they were running the ball 30 whatever times in a row in the second half against Penn State, and it was not all just that they didn't trust J.J. McCarthy. It was that the wide receiver talent was not elite. And it feels like it's taken a substantial step back from there right now. And we'll see how it develops over the course of the season. But you look at the quarterback room, which is sort of a question at the start of the season, and you look at the wide receiver room, which is sort of a question at the start of the season, and you look at Tyler Morris being the leading wide receiver with an average of 5 yards per catch on 3 for 15, long of 9. That's a concern, Tony. That tells me that they're probably not stretching. If your long catch is 9, Tony, that tells me you're not throwing past the sticks very often. And if you are, you're not doing it with a great deal of efficiency or effectiveness. So that's going to really limit what this offense can do, because if you don't have the consistent threat of the quarterback run, and you don't have a consistent downfield passing threat, the tight end is great. It's all well and good to be able to throw to your tight end a bunch, and that's something Michigan has done a lot over the years. But you've got to be able to run the absolute ever-living heck out of the football with the offensive line they have right now. I don't see that really yet. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll develop. But if you've got your leading rusher, your star running back is 2.5 yards per carry, and your leading wide receiver is 5 yards per reception, that's not great. That is not wonderful. And as we have sort of hinted around, the challenge is going to get a little steeper this weekend. And, while Michigan, I think, has an opportunity to develop into a much better team by the end of the season, I don't know how much better they're going to be next week. Maybe they were saving everything, Tony, but this is a case where just saying smash, like, it's great, and I'm sure it makes for great billboards or, marketing, social media posts or whatever. They're going to need something better than just smash to beat Texas next week.
14 targets for their wide receivers, 33 yards. So about the same 2.5 yards per attempt as Donovan Edwards. So that's not that's not a good situation. A long play on offense was a 21-yard run by Kahlil Mullings, which featured, I think, multiple broken tackles and a rumbling, stumbling gain. So definitely some concerns there where there are not as many concerns, not nearly as many concerns as on the defensive side of the ball, where Michigan, again, is very good. 22 rushing attempts for 33 yards. Not exceptional for Fresno State there. So they limited actually 9 yards, 22 for 9 on the rushing game. Fresno State threw for 235 yards, 22 of 36, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 3 sacks. A number of different things we could talk about here. The one thing that I always love about Michigan and what they do is they play a ton of guys. They played 2 entire different secondaries throughout this entire game. And there are times where Will Johnson is on the bench, and they've got 2 groups of secondary, two groups of safeties that they're putting out there, and they're rolling corners. And Sharon Moore, same as Jim Harbaugh, they don't ever care about what the final score is. They just want to get the plan done. Whatever the plan was, let's get it done. If we win by 3, doesn't matter. We're going to move on. And they came in with a plan to play a bunch of guys, and they were rotating guys in there when this is still a game. The game is still technically in doubt. And you've got Will Johnson on the sideline. You've got Makari Page on the sideline, starting safety captain. So I love the fact that they don't care. They're just going to put guys out there. Sometimes it's going to go well. Sometimes it's not going to go well. But overall, they're going to get through it, and everybody's going to be better for it. So I think that is fantastic. And they did that last year. They've done it before. And I was just impressed the way they do that.
Yeah, I think that I had a note about that as well, where that's something that you're treating these games the way they should be treated, I think, where this is a chance to play a bunch of guys. You're getting guys meaningful reps and meaningful moments where the other team is still trying. This is not sort of run out the clock time. That's great. That's something that I think more teams should probably do, and that's something that I think benefited Michigan a ton last year, not only in terms of keeping guys fresh, but also in terms of having the next guy prepared, where if you had an injury, you're not throwing in a guy who's never played a meaningful snap. You got a guy who has played significant snaps in the first halves of games against the other team's first team guys. That's all really, 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 really good and useful. And for all the not so great things that we came into the season thinking about the Michigan offense, and that I think we maybe saw at least somewhat confirmed during week 1, a lot of the good stuff that we thought about the Michigan defense felt like it was confirmed as well. There's lots of stuff to clean up, but Fresno State basically had one real drive where they went down the field and scored a touchdown in the fourth quarter. The other drive where they were driving sort of late in the game, there were 3 separate penalties that kept the drive alive. It was really kind of funny. Fresno State was absolutely determined to throw an interception and would not stop until they got it. There was one that they threw where I think it was Makari Page looked like he caught it, but then on replay it got overturned. So that was the first one. And then the second one, it got overturned on a roughing the passer call, which was TJ Guy didn't hit the quarterback hard, but just shoved him in the back way after the ball was out. And it was like, that wasn't a particularly vicious play. It was an extremely stupid play, and it cost them another interception. And then finally, Fresno State got their wish. Will Johnson jumped an out route about as well as you can jump a quick little out pass, and just about walked into the end zone from, I think, 86 yards out. So they got their wish eventually. Will Johnson got his play, got to wear his sunglasses on the bench. It was overall, though, I think you saw a lot of the good stuff that you were expecting to see from the Michigan defense, where that defensive line, the interior of the defensive line, you kind of know what you got there. They were really good. The ends, though, Derek Moore, especially Josiah Stewart, had a couple sacks. Those guys were getting pressure off the edge, and, it's just Fresno State, just like it was just Akron, and it's just whoever you're playing in week 1. It's still, that defense looks like it is probably going to be very good again this year.
And I know people talked about Michigan losing their starting defensive ends, but Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore have played as much as starting defensive ends in their career, and Josiah Stewart was a starting defensive end before he got to Michigan. Those 2 guys were really good. Want to see more of what they've got behind them. You mentioned TJ Guy. That was one of them. think he had a couple of personal fouls in this game towards the end of the game. But Josiah Stewart, 3 tackles for loss, the 2 sacks. At one point, I believe they even broke out a bear front where they had 3 defensive tackles, including Rayshon Benny, who had some good moments. And then they had, so those 3 defensive tackles, and then they had Stewart and Moore as the 2 outside guys. And then what they did on one of them was they brought Makari Page on a blitz and dropped Josiah Stewart into coverage. And there was a couple times where Josiah Stewart's dropped into coverage and making plays and throwing people down. So, he's linebacker sized, so he should be able to do those things. But good to see from him, and of course Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant are both, very, very good. Interestingly to me is this was maybe Will Johnson's worst game, but also a game where he nearly had 3 interceptions, including the 86-yard pick 6 to steal the game when he jumped the quick, screen outside. And he was doing that earlier, like he was trying to make stuff happen. And I love the aggression. And I'm just wondering that pick 6, if that's a pump and a go. I rewatched it. Like, is he completely toast? And no, he's not, because there's a defender behind him. So like that aggression is allowed because there are reinforcements behind him. But he did have some issues in coverage in this one. Does not concern me at all. I just thought it was interesting. Like you just expect him to be perfect, and when he's not, it's notable. You jot it down. It's like, well, that's weird.
Yeah, I have two in particular. One where it was, I think, the drive where they had put the backups in and Pollard was in and got beaten down the field, and they put Johnson back in, and then he got beaten to the corner of the end zone, but the throw was just kind of not a great throw. It was kind of behind the receiver and sort of towards out of bounds, and the guy couldn't bring it in. And then Jalen Moss also got Johnson on a long pass down the right sideline in the fourth quarter on that drive where they scored a touchdown. So, I don't think there's any concern at all about Will Johnson. Is Will Johnson going to be a good corner? Yes. Is Will Johnson going to more or less control his side of the field for most of the game? Yes. Can Will Johnson be beaten? Yes. Also, that can happen sometimes. I go back to the 1997 Ohio State-Michigan game where, Charles Woodson had an interception, and Charles Woodson had a punt return for a touchdown, and Charles Woodson had did he have a touchdown reception in that game too? He had at least some receptions in that game.
Like a 37-yarder.
Okay, yeah. But also David Boston got him deep once. Like no one is invincible as a corner, and you're going to see that with Denzel Burke and Davis Negbanoshan on Ohio State too. They will get beaten occasionally, but not too often. You're not going to make a living picking on Will Johnson, that's for sure. You're probably going to want to look elsewhere. But if Will Johnson's on Jeremiah Smith all game, if that's how that happens, how that shakes out, then that's probably going to be a pretty good matchup to watch. And I'm going to guess that each of them will get the better of each other at least once or twice during that game. But it is, this is a Michigan defense where they're still putting some pieces together, and there's still some spots where I'm less confident than others, but the defensive line is really good. You feel real good about Makari Page at safety. You feel real good at Will Johnson at corner, and you can sort of mix and match some other guys around those guys. If you've got that many good players on defense, you can sort of make it work around them with guys who are pretty good too.
I just don't understand why Fresno State kept throwing at Will Johnson. I mean,
yeah,
granted they succeeded, but it's like that's kind of ballsy, but they also have a very confident quarterback. So I think some of this he just took as a challenge, and I don't think you're going to get rich doing that. And it helps to have other receivers to rely on, but I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm watching this and I'm thinking it's going to be fun when you get to see Will Johnson matched up against, yes, I said Jeremiah Smith. Like, it could be anybody, but I think everybody wants to watch Jeremiah Smith versus Will Johnson and see how it goes. A veteran like Will Johnson and a true freshman who looks like a veteran in J.J. Smith. I think we're all looking forward to that. But I do think there are, I don't know, not concerns in the secondary, but you still need to see more. And you need to see Rod more eventually, like if they can. Like that would be a M-O-R-E and M-O-O-R-E. You need to see more here to help them out. But then it's like, how good is he going to be when he gets there? Is how close to 100% would he be if he can play this year? And I don't know that answer is any better than 80%. But they ran through a couple of different safeties, some different nickels. Zeke Berry got the start in place of Mike Sainristil. I think you're going to miss Mike Sainristil. You can replace him with somebody who's an all Big Ten player. You're still going to miss him because that's how good he was. Zeke Berry may get there, and he wasn't the only one out there, but he did have an interception on a tipped pass right away in the first drive. So I think they're fine enough defensively. I don't know. They're going to need to be better defensively if the offense isn't as good as it was last year. And frankly, I don't know how it can be. It's not going to be as good as it was last year. So they're going to have to work very, very hard to make all of this work and score enough points to where the defense doesn't have to be allowing 10 points a game, because it's not going to happen.
Right. That's not going to happen. I think that right now, the path to success for Michigan this year is rich man's Iowa, where if the offensive line comes along and they can run the ball efficiently and they can maybe complete some passes, if you run the ball well enough that you can work off of play action, and maybe that's a path to success for them. Heavy tight end usage. That feels like the offense, and if the defense can be opportunistic and create turnovers and give the offense some short fields or maybe just score themselves. And then, of course, Tony, special teams, always a big part of the Iowa recipe. Special teams looks like it's going to be a real strength for this Michigan team this year. Dominic Zavada continues to have a great leg, 3 of 3 from 45, 53, I think, and 55. He was very impressive again. You don't want to, that's one of those things where you don't want to lean on that too much, because there are going to be plenty of games where you are not going to be able to hold the opposing team to 10 points, and field goals are not going to get it done. But it's not, that's one of those nice to have it there things. Tommy Roman was fine as a punter, 40 basically yards per kick, give or take. But 7 of 7 on touchbacks, on kickoffs. They gave up a total of 3 yards of special teams return yardage to Fresno State. If you can more or less win on defense and you can more or less win on special teams, that's going to win you a lot of games. It might not win you every game. It might not win you the game this weekend against Texas, but it's going to win you more games than not. And if the offense can improve, that's what maybe pushes, I think the baseline for this team is 8 wins, absolute worst case scenario, 8 wins probably. If the offense can improve, maybe that gets to 9. If it improves a lot, maybe it gets to 10, or if the defense is, the rest of the defense really steps up and you have a really, really lights out defense, maybe you get to 10. I watched a lot of this, and I went into the game thinking 9 wins for Michigan this year. And I'm now looking at this team and going, 9 wins for Michigan, probably. Like it was a lot of what I was expecting. Nothing changed my opinion that much on the team, which, when your opinion is, it's 9 wins or so, that's fine, but it's probably not great. The other thing that maybe changed my opinion a little bit on things, Tony, is the USC game not looking quite as winnable as, as much as a 70-30 kind of win thing as you might have thought after USC looked pretty decent against LSU.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a factor, and I think you're going to see a lot more people picking USC than had anticipated doing that before the season. But yeah, Dominic Zavada, they went to Arkansas State, grabbed him. That dude was awesome. He's been really, really good throughout his career. But overall, an opening week win. You win by 3 touchdowns. Good job. He closed well. Great job. I think that to me is also a testament. Like when they needed that touchdown drive, Davis Warren and everybody else did it. Now, they ran the ball, I think, 6 or 7 times in that drive, and then threw it, I think, to Colston Loveland maybe to secure it there, 18-yard touchdown pass. So he was able to withstand the pressure. They do need to get more explosive. I don't know how, if they have the people that can do that. I think maybe Donovan Edwards in the passing game would go a little ways in helping that. But again, the coaches are going to make their money this year trying to manufacture this and get it looking well enough to get some wins in time. And I do thank you for giving me the title for this week's Michigan Monday, which is Rich Man's Iowa. I was struggling to come up with something, but it's very, very fitting. Anything else before we go?
I did greatly enjoy the line from Noah Eagle that Jim Harbaugh, quote, couldn't be there, but his parents are. I was like, oh, I look forward to him expanding on some of the whys behind why he can't be there. I assume, Tony, it's just because he's getting the Los Angeles Chargers ready for their regular season. That's it, right? Did he just remember that after he had accepted the invitation that, we have a game the next week. Sorry, I forgot about that.
God, I thought with this I've got to fire my calendar manager. He didn't want to be a distraction, but apparently Jack Harbaugh doesn't care about that. Like, I will distract anything. So there you go. Next week, Texas coming to town. That's going to be a big one. Everybody's been pointing to it. And we will certainly talk about it probably throughout the week a couple of times here and there. And also as well back here on our Michigan Monday edition of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. So we want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up for this video, and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we go live, when we drop videos, because it is the season for us to be doing plenty of content regarding Buckeyes, the Wolverines, and really the Wolverines. Who knows what else could be happening at any given moment, which is also why you want to hit that bell to be notified, because when stuff happens, we tend to go live. So that will do it for us. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.